Okay, I think we are there.
Okay, hi everybody. I hope you're there. I think we're live, and welcome to Lost Arts Radio Live for the 18th day of July 2018. It's really nice to be with you again. First of all, had got several comments from people during the week, excuse me, about this backdrop behind me, and it's our studio, but it's kind of a modest studio on a budget. It's not the $20 million version, it's a $20 version. So for now, that's good enough. I hope you all like it. All right. And if you want us to get our projects done and be able to keep this show going and survive and do the school and things like that, if you have the means to do it, please donate to Lost Arts Radio Live or Lost Arts Research Institute, really, which is in charge of the whole thing. And that's at lostartsradio.com or lostartsresearchinstitute.org. But the other thing I wanted to go over is what's the purpose of this show? Because obviously it's not enough time with 1 hour a week to really, go over all of the canvas all of the events of the whole week that are important, because there's a lot. Even in 1 hour, there's too much to cover. So what's the point? And I think the point is, the reason we wanted to do it, excuse me, is wanted to make some sense out of what's going on in the world. There are so many people that are overwhelmed with information, and it's a combination of the problem of trying to integrate so much that's going on so fast. It's not like it was in the old days where what would happen in a month is now 5 minutes worth of news, and it's just accelerating so quickly. So it's partly managing to get a grasp on all the things that are going on, but it's also not being completely overwhelmed by the magnitude and the threatening nature of much of what's going on too, so that you're not just so upset by being aware of what's going on that you can't handle it at all. That's why we're taking this hour every week and trying to review some of that stuff in a way that makes sense and puts it in perspective. And I think looking at the things in this week, starting after we saw each other last Saturday, certainly one of the big things in the news this week has been the meeting in Russia between the two presidents of Russia and America, Trump and Putin. And, and I'm not saying this because these are the only countries that are important right now. Every country is like a universe into itself and tremendously important. But the impact on the United States and also of the United States and also of Russia and some other really major players in the political situation of today are really relevant and critically important to every small country around the world. So it's good to understand what's going on. And we have the handicap of working through the major corporate media, which is it's not a real media. And I think, that's what Donald Trump has been talking about since the debates, which were, heavily slanted by that same corporate media. They're not in charge of doing their best to tell you what's happening. That's completely not what's going on. So if you look at the ownership of the major corporate media, they are owned by a handful of global international corporations. And just to clarify, there's nothing wrong with something being a corporation. That's just an organized legal entity. But on the global scale, sorry, my throat's tired today. On the global scale, the way that corporations are being used is pretty much for the destruction of humanity and the biosphere. And it's not by accident. It's not because the people in charge don't care. It's because they have a very coordinated agenda that would make, I often say, the conspiracy theory people are wrong. It's way deeper than they think. The cooperation and collusion, the real collusion, and unified assault through all these different attacks on humanity is very deep, and it's been in progress for thousands of years. I've traced it back originally about 4,000 years, but then about 15, and it's been around for a while. So this is a multi-generational situation that thinks that it's reaching its final victorious conclusion now, where humanity gets fully enslaved and controlled and annihilated, basically, along with all other life in the biosphere, which many of us don't think is a very good idea. And we want to do what we can to turn that around. And what I've found in the decades of research and work that I've done dealing with this is that the secret saving grace to, the ally that we want to see come in, like the reinforcements coming over the hill, when Aragorn and all the good guys were stuck in Helm's Deep, and it looked like they were going to die, and it looked like they had no hope. And then this beautiful image of the sun rising and Gandalf leading all these reinforcements that he brought to save the day. That's what we've been, hoping for, a lot of us. And some people have been saying it's the ETs. Some people have been saying that, God's just going to end the world and save all the good people and throw all the bad people into hell and stuff like that. I think that the strange thing about this play that you're in, which we're reviewing a week of right now, is that, and this is the most unbelievable thing to most people, but the reinforcements that are actually coming is you. I know that sounds really bizarre, but it's true. You, and I'm talking to each individual person out there, you and me and everybody else. Even the bad guys are dreaming and sleeping, but underneath they're the same as us. So the question is, can we wake up, enough of us, to do what we're supposed to do, play our role in this movie without disappointing the audience and ourselves? I think we still can. I'm sure we still can. And so the purpose of looking at the outer mundane events in the world is not to emphasize the complexity and confusion and, extreme scope of the whole thing so that we feel overwhelmed. The purpose is to look at it in a way that makes sense of it so that you feel like you do get a grasp on it and can use it as strategic awareness for more of an emphasis on what it is you're supposed to be doing with your time. Because it seems to me, and I'm not some kind of fancy radio host, obviously. I mean, this is my uniform, a t-shirt and everything, and I've got a $20 studio I'm talking to you from, but I'm more of just a, leftover hippie that didn't grow up from the 60s, but I'm really interested in all of our well-being, and I can feel the individual suffering of the people and the other life forms all over the planet. And I don't want to see that continue. I'd like to see us all be okay, and I mean all of us. I don't have any desire to throw the bad guys into, permanent torture or anything like that. I want us all to wake up from this thing. So when you look at a major event in the world like what happened this week with Trump and Putin, it's kind of as an example of the major drama of good against evil that's going on. And I don't mean the U.S. against Russia. I mean truth versus deception. And when you really look at these two individuals that we're meeting, and I have done that a lot, and I'm not interested in saying, well, Putin used to be an intelligence officer in the KGB when Russia wasn't there. It was the Soviet Union, which was a fully communist, really nasty authoritarian government. And Trump, once said something impolite about women or had an affair or something like. Those are not the biggest things, you guys, that are happening. The biggest things is when you everybody has a background, right, where they've made a lot of mistakes, every single one of us. And the question is, what do you do with those lessons? Not did you ever make any mistakes? That's a deception on the part of the media. Saying, well, Putin can't be trusted. He was in the KGB. Well, that's what they had then for their government intelligence agency. Trump can't be trusted because he once was involved with some woman, mutually consenting, but, maybe some affair that was covert. Every single one of us that's honest has gone through stuff that we would rather not have done. But the question is not trying to hide it. The question is trying to learn from it and say, what can you do? And if you ever got people into government, like into the office of president or prime minister or something, who were aware of their mistakes and honestly trying to be a better person from them, and they're trying to serve their country, number one, and the world indirectly by extension, that would be fantastic. I mean, incredible. It doesn't mean getting somebody into office that never made a mistake. That's just a stupid diversion to get to criticize everybody as being worthless because they've all made mistakes. Question is, what are they doing now? Are they like so many of the past presidents in America who not only have made horrible mistakes and in some cases been party to murder and rape and all kinds of stuff, child trafficking, blackmail, I mean, a lot of stuff. That's not even the reason they're not good in office now. It's because they're still doing it. They're not wanting to, I would use the word repent, but I don't want this image of just whipping yourself saying, I was terrible, I was terrible. That doesn't go anywhere. Once you realize you made a mistake, beating yourself up more, which took me forever to figure out, doesn't make you any better. And the only thing it does to beat yourself up in the present, I know this is a weird newscast, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to bring this into context and I'm going too slow and I'll try to speed it up a little bit. But this one news event can teach us a lot. So we don't have to look at thousands of things that happen during the week. If we understand the implications of one of them, then we've really gotten something out of it. So what I'm saying is, once you realize your mistake, if you are doing an honest effort to improve your life and do good things for other people, that's great. And that means that mistake is helping you. And it means anybody who's condemning you for that mistake is either really uninformed, misguided, naive, etc., or, as in the case of the media, maybe water's going to help me, is trying to use that for deception purposes to demonize somebody so that you don't notice how important their good qualities are. I don't know a lot about Jack the Ripper, but he's used as an example of a really bad person in England. And I don't care if it's Jack the Ripper or the worst person you can imagine. If they change and they're realize that was not so good and they're really sorry they did things and they're trying to make up for it by doing some really good things, that's incredible. And if you could ever get somebody like that into office, much more so as president or a really powerful position in a powerful country, that would be incredible. That'd be truly incredible. And it has nothing to do with political parties. That's a stupid distraction. A lot of the founders of America realized parties were a terrible idea, and they ended up doing them anyway. But I still think they are, because who cares what the party platform is? You get somebody in there who's a, conscious, malicious destroyer of humanity. I don't care if they're the best party in the world. That's totally irrelevant. Or if the party is really criminal and you get a good person rising up through it, taking advantage of its structure and using it for good, that's wonderful. So I would say, in America, forget the parties except to be aware of the criminal intent on both sides of them. They demonstrated that during the last election, not by Russian hacking. That's just stupid. The U.S. does more hacking of elections than Russia could imagine. I mean, maybe they can imagine it, but they can't match it. And almost all the other major countries are hacking into and trying to, influence other elections. You could see Obama, for example, going over to England and saying, this is the way you need to do it. Vote against Brexit, right? Because that would be a really bad thing for you to do. That's right out in the open. I mean, how much more meddling in an election do you need to see? The U.S. people have done it for decades and decades, probably centuries. And almost every other government, the UK and the other ones do it too. That's totally not the issue. The issue is what's happening in each country itself and what's the personal quality of the person who gets elected. So when you see a meeting between Putin and Trump, which I think was last Monday that happened, which was a big deal. And in my mind, this is one of the big mistakes of Trump. He should have had that meeting in the first month after his election, because Putin was reaching out saying, we want to work with you, be allies, stop the wars, which Russia is nothing for wars compared to the U.S. And we want to have peace in Syria. We want to destroy ISIS completely. We want to work with you on all that stuff. Trump was bullied into not only ignoring that, but putting sanctions against Russia when Russia was trying to make peace. This is really a bad mistake on Trump's part, giving into the Democrats and the media and the traitor Republicans who were in office and still are all through Congress. I mean, that was really bad. However, that mistake was corrected last Monday. And this is a big deal. So the media in America, which was trying to prevent that from ever happening, they accelerated their attacks on Trump and intensified them tremendously. They had people on the media this week saying that Trump is destroying the country by meeting with Putin, that by being nice to Putin and cooperative and saying, yeah, this Russia collusion thing is really stupid and it's all made up, which is true. It's known that it's true. I mean, Julian Assange has basically sacrificed his life to be a channel through which whistleblowers within the Democratic Party, like Seth Rich and all these other people within the Republican Party and within no party and from other countries, are able to just channel these revelations, and so that the citizens have a chance to know. Well, now the media was very careful not to publicize any of that, except for real media like InfoWars and places that their Congress is trying to shut down and everything now. But it's well known that this is an ongoing criminal organization, both parties actually, that were doing everything they could to stop a good person from getting into office in America. The Republicans were just as against him as the Democrats, and there was a reason. Their bosses were telling them to attack. And that's not that he didn't make mistakes, not that he didn't have a past that was difficult or had an affair or, did whatever. It's not because of that, because he obviously was not perfect in the past, or that he didn't ever make a politically incorrect statement or say something bad about a man or a woman. And it doesn't make him against men and against women. Okay, that's just totally stupid and wasn't true. The reason they fought against him in America and all over the world was because his motive was good. That was unacceptable. That was his flaw in their mind. Because if anybody gets into office and their motive is good and they want to help the country and they're clearly sacrificing their whole comfortable lifestyle, the safety of themselves and their family, subjecting themselves to this incredible slander 24 hours a day by the media, mostly all made up. They're not in there for their own ego, okay? They're not, I mean, they'd have to be really stupid for that, because that's not what you do to feel good in your ego. You know, put yourself as the number one target of worldwide media and corporations and everything. No, they knew better. They're not that dumb. They knew he was in there, and there was a danger that he could ruin the program of destroying America, which was well underway and still is underway, but it's paused in a lot of respects because of that election. And something amazing happened in that election. That's why they have to say it was illegitimate. You have to understand how these things fit together. It's not about Democrats against Republicans. They're both totally corrupt. It's against honesty versus, made up stuff. So this meeting was a really big deal for the planet, because all of the other candidates, the Republicans and Hillary, were talking about policies that would have led quickly to nuclear war. And they knew it, and they wanted it. And that's because they are servants of powers above them that want destruction. And they were willing to go along with it in order to have power for a little while for themselves. The only one who talked about not wanting war, and not wanting war with Russia in particular, during the presidential debates in 2016 was Donald Trump. That's why they hate him. If he was as bad as they say, they would love him. So you got to understand this dual mindset and the duplicity of the announcers on the media, who are all obeying direction from a much higher level within the corporate government structure. So when Trump and Putin met this week, there was a spirit of cooperation, and Trump finally being willing to say publicly, not only are the major news media completely dishonest, which is a polite word for it, and fake, but the whole demonization of Russia is fake. And, I'm not trying to make everybody like me for this point of view, obviously. And most of the conventional people will think I'm a demonic entity just like Trump. But at some point, you have to say the truth, whether you're going to get in trouble for it or not. And the cooperation that started this week could have a big part in the future of this planet, because neither Trump nor Putin have an interest in nuclear war, and they don't want to blow up the planet. And they have faults, but their intent is what has the potential to save everything. And Putin's ahead of Trump in many ways. For example, and the media will never tell you this. This is why they hate him again. He's trying to get 5G out of the schools. He's trying to get all Wi-Fi out of the schools. Wi-Fi is deadly for humanity, and even other life forms, even plants and trees, are proven to be negatively impacted by microwave technologies as they exist now. It could be done differently, but it was intentionally done in line with the microwave weaponry that Barry Trower has talked about on our Sunday show many times. Not a mistake. Not because somebody doesn't care. It's hard for us to grasp this because we can't imagine somebody this evil. But it's on purpose, you guys. Putin has recognized it and is taking it at least out of the schools. And the telecom industry is really massively difficult to fight because they have so much money and power. And they own much of the governments on both sides and in other parts of the world. Because if you get elected into Congress, for example, in the U.S., and you want to retire in a few years with Rolls-Royce automobiles and ownership of all this expensive stock and everything, all you have to do is go along with the wireless industry, go along with the drug industry, go along with nuclear power, go along with all these other what used to be called special interests, but they're way beyond that. And you can make as much money as you want. You get insider trading tips, big investment opportunities. This is well known. And Trump said no. In fact, we're going to get rid of lobbyists. And he's done a lot in that direction, which the media will never mention. He's gotten out of organizations like TPP and the fraudulent Paris Climate Agreement. And I'm not either side, right or left wing or Republican or Democrat or liberal or conservative, because as soon as you have those blinders on of a label that you have to fit into, your vision is limited. And I don't want to do that. So I've been a devoted environmentalist since the early 60s, at least. But I'm not a liberal. I'm not a progressive. I'm not a conservative or anything else like that. And I'm not really an environmentalist because there's some really stupid aspects of that, the way it's defined now. You're supposed to give up all your rights to save the earth, and I am completely not in favor of that. But I've been trying to work for the well-being of all life forms on the planet and to me, they're all life forms from stones on up. Humans are sometimes questionable the way we act, but they're all life forms. And I want us all to be okay. That's just, I told you I wasn't a sophisticated radio host or anything. I'm just a really simple ex-hippie, not even ex-hippie from the 60s, not a drug addict at all. I wasn't even at that time, but everybody around me was. But the intent at that time, the reason most of them were taking drugs was not to zone out or go crazy and do stuff like now, but it was to try to understand. Most of them were actually trying to expand their consciousness. They were sincere. They were misused, but they were sincere. So Trump and Putin represent two people that are trying to help the world. And the media's job is to make sure that you don't recognize it. And that this massive event that happened this week was two corrupt people, a covert KGB hitman and a misogynist, racist Russian agent, homophobe, Islamophobe. Those people were meeting to see what damage they could do for their own egos. This is the job of the media, to get you to think that. So you can check yourself and give them a grade on how successful they've been. Hopefully not very, but even if they have succeeded, you might want to shake off the programming because it's not exactly accurate, to say the least. So Putin has been giving examples to the U.S. in many important ways up to now. One is the whole 5G thing and exposing, not as much as I'd like him to, but at least partway, the GMOs are, not GMOs, I'm sorry, the 5G and the microwave transmissions are a deadly threat to humanity. I mentioned GMOs by mistake just then because he's also put a moratorium or a ban on GMOs for at least 10 years in the whole country. And that's a big deal because the biotech industry is formidable, like the telecom industry. And going against them is not something you do for popularity. And yet the Russian people as a group are so much more awake than most of America that they really love Putin in huge majority. You're not told about that either. He's got tremendous approval ratings, way higher than Trump has right now. Though Trump's are much better than the media will tell you. And Putin has said that not only does he want to get rid of GMOs, well, he says he wants them to prove that they're safe before letting them in anymore, which of course they'll never be able to do, honestly. Neither can 5G, neither can all these other, most of the drugs, and none of the vaccines are ever going to prove that. And he wanted to become the world's #1 exporter of organic food. That's a really big deal. You know, all the organic and environmental organizations should be saying how wonderful that movement on the part of Putin is. But you've got these labels hanging everybody up, most people up. I'm either liberal, which means, or progressive, and I have to say everything that you're supposed to believe as a progressive or a liberal. You know, you're in favor of freedom to choose abortion, or you're in favor of socialist government, you know, in favor of a lot of really stupid things, but you also are in favor of protecting the environment, but in such a way that the government controls everything. That's not intelligent. Okay, sorry. And I have a lot of really good friends among that identify themselves as liberals, but I'm not going for popularity. I'm just telling you the truth, liberals, that's not smart. And the latest thing that liberals are being pulled into, and you could see a lot of examples this week in violence all over the country and other parts of the world, but certainly in America, is that because you believe in love and peace and environmental protection, you have to go out and cause riots and beat up and kill people that aren't liberal, okay? Now, how much sense does that make? And the fact that even one person in America fell for that, because some of them became Antifa, some people who were university professors, just like the KKK used to dress up in white robes and masks so you couldn't tell that they were primary figures in your town, and these white witch hats, you know, that were pointed and everything and had all kinds of ceremonies. What does it say that anybody could have ever fallen for that and joined KKK a few decades ago? The same thing it tells about people who put on a mask, or a red mask with hammer and sickle, or black all over, and cover their whole face and join Antifa. These are not bad people underneath, but they're really dumb in how they're acting, and they're totally brainwashed, and all they want to do is cause harm and kill people, which they're on as kind of a drug, because I guess it makes them feel powerful, because underneath they're so worried that they feel weak. And this is the lure of the whole negative power structure. In other words, follow evil and you get to feel powerful. Nobody who's awake would ever follow that nonsense. And I'm talking about not just the foolish people who are in Antifa and, you know, all these communist and socialist groups supporting socialist candidates for office, like in New York, and ones who come out like in the 2016 election and talk and support the most popular candidate in that election, who was an admitted socialist. These people have fallen for incredible programming, and it's suicidal in the end. But they can wake up, just like you or I could wake up, and anybody can wake up. Now, waking up the way I mean does not mean being able to recite the good and bad things happening in the world. That's not waking up. That's just learning what some of the real news is. The waking up that I'm talking about is self-awareness, which means you would never fall for doing something harmful to somebody else and getting prestige and power and money for it because of hurting them, and enjoying their pain and suffering, because you would know as soon as you wake up to yourself, you wake up to your connection to every single other person and life form anywhere. That's a really big deal. That means you don't need a belief system. In fact, you're not even interested in a belief system. You're interested in knowing. And you know the source of knowing is inside you and always was. And if you get in touch with that, your treatment of everybody else, your respect of everybody else changes, you know. So with every one of us, we evolve from not caring about other people and being really selfish in a stupid way, where we're actually hurting ourselves because of the karmic implications. But being selfish on a really unaware level, to gradually getting to a point where you start being aware, whoa, you're not some helpless, dependent, stupid being at all, like the media wants you to think, dependent on experts and all this junk. You're incredible. And it's funny that religious authorities for thousands of years have been telling you you're a worthless sinner, you're a pile of dust, you're totally stupid, everything that you want is wrong. Follow the religious authority or the government authority and find out what is okay to want, work for that, give up all you have, give your property to the religious organization, or, so they can keep you safe from all the bad implications of having what you want. And that way they'll guarantee that you and your ancestors and your descendants and everybody, if you pay enough, they can all go to heaven or paradise. It's going to be great. Nobody would ever fall for any of that stuff unless they're completely programmed and unconscious. So if we want to make some sense of what's going on in the world, the sense of it is not to be able to recite the so-called news. The sense of it is, what do you do in response? So we just had this amazing meeting between two people that are trying to help their countries. I mean, Putin has done all these wonderful things. He's shown amazing spiritual restraint in not causing war by having his aircraft shot down in Syria by U.S.-backed terrorists, or by the U.S. ally. Turkey has been doing things. And I mean, they did stuff like they shot down a Russian jet, and then Russia sent a helicopter in. They didn't go bomb Turkey or something. They sent a helicopter to rescue anybody that might still be alive in this other aircraft that just got shot down. And the guy's coming down on a line to try to rescue anybody still breathing in there. And the terrorists that came out of Turkey machine gun him. And Russia did nothing. You don't have to study religious archives to find real saintly people. They're probably sitting right around you, wherever you live, but they don't make a big show. And Russia's done some stuff like that. And the media says that Russia invaded Ukraine. That's not true. Ukraine had an election which was overthrown by covert operation from people that backed and cooperating with U.S. Negative elements in the government. And they put in literal fascist group to take over. And Crimea, which is almost all Russian speaking, and part of Russia, essentially it was part of Russia before. Russia ran a referendum and said, look, do you want to be taken over by this invading force, which was the real invasion, which was backed with millions of dollars from outside? Or do you want to stay part of Russia? And they overwhelmingly voted to stay part of Russia. That's what happened. Russia didn't invade Ukraine. So the media is twisting all these stories and demonizing and attacking. And who knows, they're probably involved in the assassination of some of the people that would tell the truth. But if everybody's just quiet and doesn't tell the truth, or just is a Democrat and wants to kill all the Republicans, which they literally have. I mean, they publicized the baseball game where somebody could come shoot Republicans with no problem. And some of the Republicans have been horrible traitors. And I'm trying not to activate too many keywords here because I don't want to lose our ability to get to you guys. The parties are irrelevant. It's the quality. So you've got somebody as president of Russia and president of the United States that is a rare opportunity. And my take on it is that they need complete support by everybody in America and everybody in Russia. And if we really do that, the media is going to have a really hard time in selling the nonsense propaganda, and they're really revving it up. And another important thing happening in the U.S. and globally, really by extension this week, is what's going on with the social media, the major players. And again, I don't want to mention the names, but you guys all know the names anyway. There's like 3 or 4 of them. And they're being used in connection to the people that want to kill or overthrow the current president. And they are using algorithms, that means programs, at least in my understanding, that can recognize certain kinds of posts and put the ones that they don't want seen down really hard to find. It's called shadow banning. And the ones that they do want to see up at the top. And they've proven with studies in other countries that they can control elections like 60% of the vote just by making it hard to find good information on the people that are actually trying to do something good, and really have wonderful stories about the people who are part of the operation to destroy the country. And they intend to do that in the election that we're only a few months away from. If they succeed on that, we're right back into the full-scale program of national suicide for America, which hurts the whole world and would take away any hope of cooperation between the U.S. and Russia, which is really important. So what happens now with support or lack of support for the president in America is really important. It is totally not a partisan issue. Almost everything that's being reported that's so terrible about the current president is completely wrong. The cover on Time magazine, I guess that was from before this week, but it had the president scowling and looking down at this little girl who's like, I don't know, 3 or something, and she was crying, obviously ripped away from her parents by some malevolent demon in office. The president went down there and, personally did that just to be mean, because he hates everybody from other countries, right? Especially Mexico, and which is total nonsense. It's not true at all. And it came out later that there was an investigation done by many people on who is this crying girl? What's really going on? And she was never separated from her mother. Her mother left her father with the daughter to go across Mexico, brave the coyotes, and and I don't mean animal coyotes. They're not hurting anybody over there that I know of. The coyotes, they're people who take people north trying to illegally get into America for a whole bunch of money. And if you don't pay enough, or if they raise the price on the way, they hold your kids hostage and kill you if you don't pay them. Those coyotes. And the mother and daughter came up with them and were never separated. It was a complete lie. But starting from when Ellis Island was operating in the U.S., they had been quarantining certain people that had diseases or were questionable. Almost all these people trying to get across the border, they're not immigrants. This is deception from the media. They're illegal aliens. You would be an illegal alien trying to sneak into Mexico. It's not a racist term. It means you're not following the legal procedure to get into a country. And the media is running this psyop to get you to forget all about that and say, well, gee, obviously Trump's a racist and he hates everybody from outside the country, and he's just running down there in person and ripping these people away from their parents. That is so ridiculous. Nobody who has any intelligence and awareness would fall for that ever. That's not what's going on. The Border Patrol and the ICE agents and the immigration services of different kinds have been trying to do a good job, and they've got beautiful facilities where they're putting a lot of these people. And when they don't know who the parents are, they can't leave the kids with the parents if they don't have parents. And a lot of the parents have died on the way up through Mexico. You're not supposed to just sneak into a country or come up saying, we have a right to come in. No, you don't. Americans don't have a right to just walk into Mexico or any other country. They have to respect what the Mexican government has set as the steps and follow them, even if it takes 10 years. And even if you're holding your baby, so the news media is going to try to use you for deception, that doesn't change the fact you have to go through the process of legal immigration. Those are immigrants. The people who just try to walk across the border are not. They're not immigrants. Big difference. And the crazy governments in California and San Francisco and places that are trying to make sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, that's not humanitarian. That's totally malicious. And they're tearing apart their own societies. And you can see this in San Francisco. They're building an environment that nobody will want to go to. They got people going to the bathroom all over the sidewalk, shooting up with drugs on the sidewalk openly. I mean, setting up tents and things all over the street. Obviously, many of them mentally ill. And this also gives sanctuary to people with violent crime. And there was a recent example of a guy that shot this young girl in the back, right in her father's arms, basically. And he was an illegal immigrant, illegal alien. He was not an immigrant. Don't fall for this language nonsense from the media. And he got off. Everybody saw him shoot her. And people are getting away with rape and being told that, well, it's their culture, it's okay. The public should not fall for this, not just in the US, but Europe, Scandinavia, trying to do it in Russia. I mean, this is a coordinated plan to tear down individual countries so that the people will be so distressed and so panicked that they'll ask for tyranny to bring back law and order. That's a big part of the plan and the reason they're doing this. And in the end, and that's why they want you to think that having borders on your country to stop people coming in until that you check out and how they go through the legal process and prove that they should. They're trying to make you think you should have no borders and that anybody who wants borders is a fascist and all this junk. I know a lot of you understand that that's obviously nonsense, but everybody needs to understand that so that the current state of the corporate media gets no traction. You know, they're even running stories in America this week and other places that Donald Trump said that media is the enemy of the people because that would expose the truth from the media, and criminals like our current president would never get away with all this stuff. Do you see how sophisticated that is? He never said it, for one thing, and I've listened to most of his speeches start to finish, or a lot of them anyway, maybe not most. He said corrupt, fake, dishonest media is an enemy of the people, which anybody that is still a little bit clear and intelligent knows is true. Because if the media intentionally, and especially the big organized corporate media, comes out and says things that are not true, like you get a president with a good intent into office, and you say that he is all these bad things, they're an enemy of the people, because what's going to happen, especially if they can corrupt the next election by use of the social media algorithms, which they're setting up for now. And Trump better notice that and better take advantage of that knowledge and act on it and break them up and stop it and make it criminal and go after them for not being an open, free marketplace of ideas. I'm just going to say, major social media entities are coming out and saying, well, we want to make it a pleasant, positive experience when you use social media. Do you see the deception with words? It's what the original propagandists started working on with the nephew of Sigmund Freud, and on after that it's just gotten more sophisticated. It's not the job of the honest media to decide what's a positive experience. Their job really is to tell you the truth. We don't have a media like that in America with the corporate media, but we are seeing an emergent media, not just with spectacular ones like InfoWars, which now they want to shut down in Congress, and I'll tell you about that, but with all the people that go out individually and say, I want to see what's going on at the border. So they take their cell phone camera, not any preconceptions, things they're wondering about, and they go down there and they film it and they say honestly what they see. That's real media. It's not an enemy of the people. So you have to see through the brainwashing and the use of words, which is not careless. It's very, very engineered. And they had hearings that I think we're continuing this week about social media and its misuse in Congress, in the U.S. Congress. And you had corrupt members of Congress, and they were saying that InfoWars, that, in my opinion, the most spectacular effort at honest news media in a comprehensive venue with like lots of different stories 6 days a week, that they should be shut down because, as the corporate media said, their brand is bullying, completely false, no basis at all, and they never show any backup of this kind of thing. And one of the major famous newscasters came out and said, yes, Alex Jones is an unalloyed racist, using his best authoritative, condescending, polished tone of voice so that people who are unconscious, unfortunately, most of the people right now, would believe him and say, wow, I didn't know Alex Jones was an unalloyed racist. I better join the movement to have him banned from the internet, which is the way they want to see the internet working. And if they succeed in showing that Trump is a demon and a Russian agent and Putin is trying to blow up the world, and now because they cooperated, it says that Trump is just being a slave of Putin and stupid stuff. If they succeed at convincing all of you of that, or enough, and combining that with electronically hacking the voting machines, which we know they can do. A lot of them come from Soros's companies, actually, in the U.S. Then we could be right back into a fast downward spiral. And this current administration is a chance to break that momentum and to expose the nonsense of socialism, get rid of government corporate collusion, which is a big area of ignorance of Trump that needs to improve. A lot of the corporations that he's supporting are doing such toxic things that would destroy the biosphere and humanity. He needs to get waked up from that. But the difference is he's not doing it out of malice. That's a huge, critically important issue. So because his motive is good, instead of being attacked, the people with good motivation should be doing everything they can to educate him and get him the real information on organic farming. The reason we should actually phase out not just GMOs, but all of chemical agriculture and almost all of drug medicine, and at least end the monopoly that it has right now. Stop the 5G and reverse the other Gs before that and put in alternative technologies that are not toxic. Trump is ignorant of most of that, and it's up to the citizens of America and the rest of the world to bring that information to him. And the power structure knows that if he gets it and we succeed at that, then it's all over for them, because he'd turn around and act on it. If he learns about geoengineering, I think he would send the Air Force up to stop it. And they probably know that. So most of us don't have direct access to the president right now, but you do on a deeper level. And we don't have time or the platform to get into that right now. But humans are basically transceivers. We're like the cell towers, only much, much more powerful. This is a big fear of the power structure. This is something that they will do anything to stop. Because if you wake that up in yourself, which takes some work, you really have to know what to do. You wake that up, you can send support in real time to the president or anybody else that's trying to do good, and there are a lot of them, so that they get more conscious themselves and they start becoming aware of these areas of information that they're getting wrong right now. You can help that. You have vast power. And I'll talk as much as I can about that because that gets down to solutions, not partisan solutions, not left or right, not that stupid fighting between factions. I mean real solutions. And you have the power to play a major role in that. I'll say some of it on the free videos on our YouTube channel. Watch that. Please stay in touch with real.video starting right now, because there's no guarantee how long we'll be able to keep using the mainstream platforms. Go to real.video, find our channel there, and tell everybody else, please. But I'm going to keep on this one as long as possible and not using any trigger keywords as much as I can help it. And you have to understand where I'm coming from, know what I mean. My motive's real simple. I want us all to come through this and be okay. That's it. That's the only reason to know about the news. That's the only reason we pick an issue to talk about, is I want you guys and all of us to be okay. And that sounds really naive and childlike and oversimplified, but that's where the important issues are to me. So I'm probably never going to become a grown-up in the acceptable term. I just want us all to realize we don't have to fight and fall for all this stupid division that the media and the corporations are pushing. We're capable of being much more aware than that. That's what this news show is about, and we'll find some other issue some happening during the week to talk about next time. And if you're interested, go there. Club meeting will start in half an hour. Anybody interested in that, where we get into more sensitive topics, go to lostartsradio.com/club. And otherwise, the Sunday show coming up on blogtalkradio.com/lostartsradio. And our guest will be Dr. Rima Lebo, and that's an interesting conversation. So I invite you to join me there. And then during the week, stay in touch on our Facebook page and group. If there's a comment or something you want covered or addressed in this show or any other, just email it in, richard@lostartsradio.com. I read them all and respond as time allows. And I guess that's it. I hope you have a really great week. Hope everything goes real well for you. Take everything as a lesson. It's not always a misfortune like it looks like. And I'll meet you here next time. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good week.